Uncool is recorded on Audio-Technica mics. If you have not caught up with last week's episode, you should go back and catch it because we are in our second episode where we're talking to Dany Leong, who many in the video industry may know as Mr. Intuitive Films.
But they have not seen him in the last 2.5 years, because he is over in Auckland. Hi, Daddy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, you're based in Auckland now.
I live in a part of West Auckland where I'm like 20-30 minutes away from city centre, and then I'm 20-30 minutes away from some of the best beaches in the world as well.
To give a little bit of context, right, Intuitive Films has been around for 15 years, right, Dany? And it started because of your passion for video production. But in the beginning, you studied law, and many of us will agree that that is pretty cool. It's not easy to get into law school, yet I think you made a very, very uncool decision at that time.
Sure. To correct it a little bit, I didn't jump from law directly into making videos.
Wow, there was more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was passionate about drama. I spent a lot of time in law school actually working on stage productions and stuff. So I enjoyed that. And that's a natural progression into telling stories and stuff like that. But I actually practiced law after graduating. I practiced law for a full year and a half. And then I told myself, this is not it, man. This is just not me. I'm going to try something else. And it doesn't help that my dad's a lawyer. So it doesn't help. My dad's a lawyer, my brother-in-law is a lawyer, my sister's a lawyer as well. So in a way, we have a kind of family of lawyers. I think going into law, we would think that that's a professional degree. It's good to have. It was more of a mental decision. To be honest, I enjoyed it because there was a lot of time outside of law to do a lot of other things. We only had don't tell lawyers out there, I don't know whether it's changed, but we only had 10 to 11 study hours per week compared to engineering. Engineering, usually you have 30 hours study hours, So 10 to 11 study hours, the rest of the time you're supposed to self-study. So that's when I did a lot of other things. I joined committees, a lot of other things. But I actually practiced in a corporate law. I actually practiced corporate law, which I admit was useful to know. But it was just so, number one, I felt stressed because it wasn't me. I felt it just wasn't me, right? I didn't enjoy it. To be honest, there were parts of it that I enjoyed, but I couldn't see myself doing this long term. I did what I call a 20-year test, and I said 20 years, meaning I would ask myself, hey, 20 years from now on, I'm not going to ask myself what I would have, because if I ask myself what I would have, as you know, lawyers earn a lot. Even at that point in time, you could see a progression. Hey, you work, kill in 20 years, you're going to get somewhere, you're pretty comfortable in life and stuff like that. But I asked myself, do I want to be that person in 20 years from here? And I looked at some of I've got a lot of friends who are lawyers and they're fantastic people sometimes, but I asked myself, do I want to be that person? So and I looked at some of my partners and I asked myself, hey, do I want to be that person? And I said, no, I don't want. It's a personal choice. I didn't feel like I want to be them. And because I didn't want to be them, I need to get out now, because I know that if I stuck to it, even for 5 years, right, by the time you probably, get a car, you might already put in your down payment for a house. That's when you start getting locked in. You're on the ladder, right, which you have to kind of keep going on that ladder, because you either get comfortable or you get so used to some of these material comforts, right, or lifestyle. I said, oh no, I've got to go, man. I've got to go, and I've got to go now. So that was really the turning point for me. Yeah, and that sort of opened my eyes and say, okay, big bad world out there, what options are there? And it wasn't easy. And actually, the next job I got was working as a business management trainee with a logistics company in the UK. It's damn strange, okay? I actually went to the UK, worked there for close to a year. But again, logistics wasn't really the thing to do lah. I enjoyed my time in the UK, bro, because it's like every 3 months we were basically living out of a car. 3 months they move you to a different location. I was actually working late night shifts in a Marks and Spencer warehouse close to London. So very, very, very different kind of lifestyle. My best friend at that point in time was a 70-year-old, God bless him, he's already passed on, 70-year-old Scotsman, right, who kind of took me under his wing. He acted like my father kind of stuff, you know.
You're so cute.
Yeah, it was a totally different environment. But it added to my life experience. And like I said, during those times on weekends, I would take time off. I would go to Panico Media Workshop in Soho and short films, edit on Steinbeck, you know, just sort of learning things. Those were the things that I really wanted to do long term. So that's why I got my feet wet through there. Yeah.
So you got those experience from basically doing something else, doing logistics and just burning the midnight oil on the weekends and stuff.
Yeah.
And doing film.
Yeah. Doing film, doing stuff that I wanted to do, kind of discovering that as well. And that was the process. After I came back, film is not an easy place to kind of jump into straight away. After I came back from that, I did work in 1 or 2 companies, and then after that, I actually just trying doing things like marketing, business development, and then I was actually even lecturing for a while at Ngee Poly actually. Before I decided to join the Advanced Diploma in Film Production program, that was run in Ngee.
I don't think they run that anymore.
No, they stopped that after a couple of years.
The advanced one, is it?
Yeah. I think they had it on for like 7 or 8 years, and then after that, not enough people coming in.
Sign-ups.
Yeah, sign-ups and stuff like that. I think it was a pretty good cost. I had only enough money for 1 year. So it's actually a 1 year full-time, 1 year part-time course. I finished my 1 year, right? And then my second year, right, I went to tell my lecturer, right? I said, at the time it was Vijay Chandran. Vijay, I don't think I can survive my second year, man. So I don't think I have money for the second year as well. And you guess what? My son was on the way. Meaning my wife was pregnant already. So financially it was, stress. Because at that time not earning, right? Obviously when you're studying full time. So on my part-time basis, thankfully for my lecturers, they said, hey, you know what? We really want you to finish this. We'll try and get you or write you a recommendation letter so that you can get a grant and stuff like that. So we did. Thankfully, by the end of 1 year or so, I think I shot some commercial which won some award in Germany. So I was like, okay, thankfully then I got that media education. MDA stepped in and I had a small grant to be able to cover my fees for that other extra year so I could actually finish up. So thankfully I graduated and through the second year I was freelancing. I freelanced as first AD with production house Verite. We were shooting basically dramas and stuff like that lah.
Was there ever a point where you thought, okay, maybe I should just go back to law? Because, you know, it's the easiest thing to do. Like,
yeah, I did. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It definitely crossed my mind more than several times. Even now, sometimes I think, oh yeah, maybe you should start there. Maybe easier than some things.
most people would just say, okay, you know what? I look at the pay or something I can get as a lawyer, and yeah, I think I'm going to do that instead.
We choose what we choose, and we kind of, have to go that way. I think it was really the fact that sometimes if you've gone too far already, then you might as well just continue discovering lah. I think that's the whole thing. It wasn't. I couldn't see myself behind a desk anymore. Yeah, as in not to say I'm not behind the desk now, but in terms of the kind of work that we do, there's a lot more creativity involved and stuff like that. And yeah, I just felt that is a lot closer to what is me than law would ever be lah. So I did look into other things. I'm just not a litigator. I just find that it's too much verbal sparring. My brother-in-law is a litigator, but I'm not. So it's either that corporate. At that point in time, the options were not a lot, huh? So it's either that corporate, apart from corporate law, which you have to spend quite a lot of time behind the desk. you would be litigation. I'm just not that kind of person where you'd be involved in a lot of verbal sparring. The other option, obvious option at that point in time, was conveyancing, which were dealing with property transactions and stuff. But it just wasn't me. So it's really, these were the three options that I was aware of. Obviously now, there are a lot more other things like technology law and stuff like that you can be involved in if you like. But it wasn't just me. And also, don't forget, coming from a legal mind, right? You tend to look at things, what are the things that can go wrong? Because that is your job.
Looking for platforms to feature your business or your project? Just reach out to us at contact@creatives@work.asia or drop us a DM to find out how and why doing so on the Uncool podcast is such a good idea.
Speaking about that, right, those major decisions that shaped your life, there was another major, I won't say it's a decision, I hope it's not a decision, but a major turning point.
My health started deteriorating. I started getting a lot of gut and sinus issues for many years, and I went a very conventional path, obviously, to in and out of specialists, doctors, to kind of find what the hell is wrong with me, right? And up to a point, many years, and you struggle with things like chronic fatigue, sinusitis, constant infections and stuff, and couldn't pinpoint. I spent a lot of money, a lot of time. Until I said, look, this can't go on. And I then veered out of the conventional path and started looking at non-conventional options, which kind of opened my eyes to things like alternative healing and stuff like that as well. And not too long ago, in about 2016, I really at the bottom of and running out of options already. I actually saw a video of this health coach, and he was sharing that he suffered from mercury poisoning from his fillings, and a lot of his symptoms were very similar to mine. And I said, shoot, let me approach this guy. And I, long story short, I approached him and stuff, and he said, look, Dany, why don't you do this test? Because currently mercury poisoning is not really recognized, but you do this test to see what your mercury levels are. And when I did that test, this is the reference range of a normal person, right? Everybody has a bit of mercury. Okay, we are all exposed to mercury, but because mercury is a heavy metal, it stays in your body. Reference range somewhere in the middle usually. I maxed it up. And he looked at me and said, wow, Dany, are you lucky even to be alive? I mean, I put it through to fillings because I had a lot of it when I grew up. I had it since I was a child. A lot of the tooth fillings that you put in, especially the silver, what they call silver amalgams, are mercury fillings. Okay, so without going into whole medical, how mercury fillings is still being used right now by certain countries, right? But a lot of countries like Germany, in the Netherlands, mercury fillings is already banned, but other places are not, including America is not, and a lot of it is political, because if they stop mercury fillings and stuff like that, they might get sued, because then you're saying that mercury is poisonous. Then you're going to question, why the hell is it doing in our mouths? How come the medical community has been allowing it to put in your mouth? So if I can reach out to all your listeners out there, right, please make sure that you don't put any other mercury fillings into your kid's mouth or yourselves, because it's just pure poison. And I can tell you this, I've got friends, I shan't name who they are, but they're dentist friends in Singapore, okay? Some of them are pretty high profile dentists, and they know me because I've had these issues and I've spoken to them about it. They said, Dany, I won't tell you anything, but I can tell you this. When it comes into the dentist's office, the mercury amalgams, right, comes in a biohazardous container. I put it in your mouth. If I remove it and discard it, I have to discard it as biohazardous waste. So what is it doing in your mouth? We are made to believe that in your mouth it's stable. It's not. So there are already documentaries out there which are trying to expose this whole big thing about how mercury poisoning is a big thing because of all our amalgams. In fact, the character in Lewis Carroll's Mad Hatter, right, is based on mercury poisoning, because Mad Hatter's disease, it's called Mad Hatter's disease because in the 1700s or 1800s, right? A lot of these guys who were making felt hats, they used mercury to make felt hats. They went crazy because it went into their nervous system and their brain and gets deposited there. So that's why it's called Mad Hatter's disease, and that's what the character was written about. Yeah. So that's a sidetrack from there.
So brush your teeth, everyone.
Oh yeah. Actually, brushing might not help because it actually releases mercury vapor into your system.
But how did such a dramatic health scare, if that's the right word, or how did that experience kind of like shape your perspective after that towards life and finances and just the way you live?
I think honestly, you go through a few things. Firstly is when you find out, actually when you have a chronic problem like that and it goes on, right? At some point you wish there was a label that was put into it. At some point I can tell you, I wish somebody would tell me that, oh, you got this cancer, so that I have something that I can work on. But no, I didn't have that for the longest time. But when finally I had a diagnosis that I had high mercury and I decided, okay, this could be because of my mercury fillings thing, right? My next question in my head was that kept coming back to me was really, why does this have to happen to me? What did I do wrong, right? How come my life is like that, right? And so it actually put me, the positive part of it is it actually put me on a path of personal development. I actually, during that few years, right, I threw myself into the rooms where there's Tony Robbins. If you guys heard of Tony Robbins, big guy, life coach. I attended tons of courses to rewire my questions. And it became to a stage where I started asking myself, okay, now that I've had that experience, what are the changes that I want in my life? And that leads to the same question, why my kids are in a Steiner school? Because I want them to be aware of a lot of other things, apart from the conventional things, right? And if anything, if my experience can help other people, even getting the word out there and talking to people about mercury poisoning, how they should stay away, then that makes my experience worthwhile and meaningful in a way.
So that also, of course, changed your outlook towards the way you approach your finances and other investments, especially now. When you say on LinkedIn you're like a media entrepreneur and investor and so on. How did that change your perspective towards finances and the like?
So I'm playing a bit of a catch up because obviously through my health struggles and stuff like that, my concentration wasn't in building finances. A lot of it was I spent a lot of years trying to survive and just trying to manage some of my chronic issues with that. Now I actually, I know you're going to bring up a lot of that questions later on, right? I actually invest quite heavily into blockchain and cryptocurrencies because of two things. I actually believe that is part of the future that we want. I believe in the future of decentralization. I also believe that, there are a lot simpler, more transparent ways that I want to be able to support. So quite a lot of my investments are in that space.
You mentioned crypto, you mentioned blockchain, all these future tools, and of course there's other things that are coming in like NFTs and so on. How do you see all these future tools actually shaping the media industry and the creative industries?
Oh, I think it's big disruption. I really think, number one, whether it's the freelancer or the creator, right, no longer have to be beholden to a bigger organization, actually, in a way. If you talk about NFTs and stuff like that, there's more power that goes back to the creator. The creator gets to have a residual income when an NFT is sold and sold and sold again. And in a way, launching an NFT is not as complicated as you having to go through the various loops of going to a production company or going to a big organization to get that done. That will slowly apply to other things like the music industry. That will slowly apply even to film as well. You might find that the way people crowdfund future projects is very different. We'll go online. I will contribute $50 to buy an NFT, which contributes to a film that is maybe an idea that Sean put up and I believed in it. I'll buy it, right? And that's all done in a transparent process, and the profits are then distributed as well. So I really see that as the future.
What about for blockchain? Do you see that coming in ever into our video production line?
Yeah. So the decentralized part of blockchain is the key thing that I feel is the biggest game changer. The fact that we can get a bunch of anonymous people, whether it's your doxed or not doxed, doesn't matter. Actually, you could be anonymous as well, right? You can get everybody together and everything is decided through a ledger, right? And it's obvious, we know what these things are, and projects can lift off the ground. And we are actually seeing quite a bit of that in the NFT space as well. People are using it as a crowdfunding platform, right? And people can launch millions just from an idea that takes fire. Yeah, of course, having said that, there are a lot of scams out there as well.
Yeah, I think there are different ways to do it, and like what you said, I think right now there's this thing that's like tearing me into two, right? Where I see there are a lot of scams. I hear more news about scams than anything else than the actual successes.
I can't grasp my head around that concept because, as we previously discussed as well, production is very labor intensive, and now you're saying, okay, we can decentralize everything and and make it and use blockchain. I was like, but it's labor intensive. We can't hide from the fact that production is labor intensive, right?
Oh, but it's two different things. When I'm talking about blockchain, I'm talking about how a certain project is constituted, right? I'm not saying that we do less work. No, it's the same amount of work that goes in. But how it takes off is you may not need a centralized figure. Can you imagine if we've got 100 freelancers, right? And the 100 freelancers are getting involved in a drama project which they believe in, right? And they might not take a salary in a sense. You can cover them maybe with enough of a stipend to cover their expenditure, right? But they will personally invest their time in it as well. And of course, a portion of that means that they lock in a certain percentage of profits when their profits come. And that can be done through the blockchain because of the distributed ledger technology as well.
Okay, I got you there. Okay.
So with that, right, what kind of advice would you give to creators in specifically, right, about blockchain or moving into crypto or just finances in general?
I think firstly is to really get familiar with it, what it is. It is very, very new and we're very, very still early stage. And because of that, don't dismiss it because there's going to be big failures. There's going to be, scammers out there and stuff like that. But get familiar with it, get your feet wet. I really encourage people to do that because the possibility is there. It's just not crystallized yet. And it will take a few years to crystallize. By the time you jump in when it's crystallized already, it might be a bit late. So I really feel people should go out there, experiment, test, get their feet wet, see what works. Because then by the time it crystallizes, you're ready.
And there's also that FOMO that is happening. It's like, what's happening? Like, how do I get involved?
But I totally get Dany when he said, don't dismiss it. I think it was something like 2014, 2015 or something like that. It's like a whole 5-6 years ago. Or maybe longer. So I had this client who said, okay, they owe you money. I mean, that's very typical. That, clients pay you late and so on. And then this client actually came and said, I can't pay you cash, but I can pay you in Bitcoin. Do you accept Bitcoin? And then I'm like, and I'm thinking to me, I'm like, no, how can I accept Bitcoin, right? I'm not going, my editor and my camera crew and all that, are not going to accept Bitcoin. So how? So I said, no, I can't. Imagine if I said yes, then. If I said yes, then they're like, give me the equivalent of Bitcoin of that sum, and I held on to it like now what it is today. Never mind that it's dipped like crazy in the last 2 months. I'll be sitting on a big upside from back then, But at that point in time, I'm thinking like, but my crew is not going to accept being paid in Bitcoin. So I'm like, no, that ended well. But yeah, I get what you mean. We shouldn't dismiss it. All these future tools, Web 3.0 and so on. How are you then going to position yourself and how are you going to position Intuitive then? What kind of ventures are going to excite you then as a media investor? Dany?
Good question. I mean, currently I'm still involved mainly as a passive investor, right? So I obviously buy cryptocurrencies. I'm involved in some NFT projects. I actually have a small investment in a hedge fund on blockchain as well. These are all my experiments. I think for Intuitive, we're kind of still figuring out, but my ideal thing is really media will play a very big part in the Web 3.0, media will still play a very big part in the metaverse as well, because you might have avatars going to watch commercials, for example. I mean, my ideal version is that we have AIs and avatars that go and do work for ourselves while we are resting at home, and then they're earning income, they are getting taxed. But they again might also be involved with some sort of media production, but within the metaverse or within a Web 3.0 kind of context. So I don't have a definitive answer there, because I'm still trying to explore and seeing certain things take shape, because it's still very, very early in the game. Yeah.
So just keep your eyes open right now and your ears sharp.
And I think it's also is because you own Intuitive Films, but you're not exactly creative. I mean, and not to say that you're uncreative, but because you came with all this experience from law and from logistics and so on, I think your mind just works differently. I think it's actually very important as well, in a sense. I mean, you definitely have the business mind.
Yes and no. There are pros and cons. Whether you're a generalist or specialist, and increasingly whether you have a broad-based subject matter. For me, because of my experience, I do have a broad base. But then again, you do get you probably hear the repeated idiom that you're jack of all trades, master of none as well. So sometimes I wish, hey, I'm just this focused that I can just do this and I do this super well. So yeah.
That's why you delegate, and that's why you can manage from Auckland. Yeah, someone else is creative for you.
Doesn't always come true. Sometimes I still have to jump in and say, hey guys, we need to do this, and I'm gonna have to do this myself.
That's why you have to put in all your experiences and all your different skill sets to kind of solve the problem.
Yeah, I'm still learning. I'm still a work in progress. I think that's the key thing.
So you definitely have a lot of experience for sure. What will you then share then as obviously a veteran of the media industry and having been through so much? What will you share then to the younger generation and to the freelancers who are tuning in, especially about their psychology towards money and towards their careers in the industry?
Oh, I actually think a lot of youngsters who are coming into the industry are a lot more savvy than I used to be at their age, honestly. And they're coming in with a lot more awareness as well. Awareness in terms of options, and a lot more consciousness that whatever path that they went through in school, right, might not be the thing. Whereas I came in having to fight that, or having to unravel a lot of that. And yeah, I actually think youngsters come in, they come into the world already quite media savvy. They know how to shoot videos already. They can do podcasts. They can do their own vlogs and stuff like that. So they are very, very savvy. I was actually stunned. When my daughters, they will never want me to show that video lah. But at about 9 years of age, right, she made a vlog, and when I saw it, I said, wow, bloody hell, this is so professional from a 9-year-old. Because she just watch and then she just do it. Exactly. She'll go like, hi guys, and click subscribe down here and stuff like that. She just, right there, I'll say, oh, this is the world that they come into, and they're already plugged and wired for it. And which we, being oldies, I mean oldies meaning older than them, have a lot to catch up. Yeah, so I'm not sure whether I can offer any good advice to them.
It might be the other way around
No,
instead.
but in the same token, they can't do what you do. I'm not dissing the younger generation, but I say if you ask them to, okay, let's go do a drama, 100 people drama, I don't think they can perform as well.
Yeah, but then they might do things differently as well.
Then they don't need 100 people, they just need 10.
Yeah. I think if anything, I would say as long as we keep our identity and realize that we are works in progress all the time, meaning that we will constantly keep improving, keep finding ways, keep discovering, keep being curious. If there's any good advice I would provide anybody, it would be that we're not fixed. Because the moment you say, I know this, that's when you stop growing.
So, Dany, on that note, we do have one last question for you, which we ask all our guests. So,
what's my favorite color? No.
If only were that easy, okay? But this is a tougher one. So when were you, Dany Leong, the most uncool in your eyes? And what would you say to yourself back then?
Wow. I think I was most uncool when I basically was a lawyer, actually. I was probably the most uncool then, right? Because I was stuck on a desk-bound job. What would I have said myself then? I wish I had more guts to try a lot more things earlier, even during school time, right? So that by the time I come out to the working life, because the longer you wait, the more responsibilities you have, if you have kids and stuff like that. Because once you have kids, where you got time to experiment, just do your job, man. Make sure
earn the money, just feed the kids.
Make sure that there's bread on the table, right? Yeah, so experiment as early on as possible, because that's where you discover yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at. I would really encourage that.
On that note, I got
so
this
cute.
guy who's come running in here. You talked about kids.
We have a
Okay,
new
his name?
guest today.
What's his name?
Sorry,
but
Dany.
this is Micah. On that note, right, you've run Intuitive for 15 years. And at which point in that 15 years you think Intuitive was uncool? And was there a moment where you thought, in that journey that, yes, I think we are fine now, we are cool now, we've really made it, we can survive?
I don't think we're there yet. I'm always reminded that we're uncool in some point and that we got so much more room to improve. I really can't find a point that... I suppose that kind of discomfort is helpful, because that means I will continue to keep improving. As a company, we will continue to keep growing. Was there a point where I looked back and I thought Intuitive was really uncool? Where we were at one point which was stable but really tough, in the sense that it was boring. We did like this construction animation, like how certain waterproofing is put into the construction site and stuff like. Oh, that was the most uncool job, but it paid the bills. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I do like that, though. I think I'm a bit of a geek in that sense, but well, then it's only up from here. So, Dany, if people want to find more about Intuitive Films and find out more about you, where can our listeners do that?
You can go to www.intuitivefilms.com. And our website and socials are there. Personally, I guess they can connect with me through LinkedIn.
And if you want to hear from our other guests coming up in our new episodes or catch up on our old episodes, drop us a like and remember to click follow on our podcast. Also, tell your friends about us, give us a 5-star rating, because that really does help. And no worries, because it's cool to be uncool. Uncool was recorded on Audio Technica mics.